All right, welcome back to another live with Diabetes 180. Um, and just as a reminder, we are covering anti-aging pathways. So this will be the second of our series. We'll have more lives on the topic. Next week, we're going to steer away from anti-aging. We're actually be talking about something else, another very important part of our health, and we're going to actually have a special guest on. So I'm really excited about that. So that will be next Monday. But for now, we're going to continue our series. This is actually was supposed to be last week's topic, but we had to reschedule. We didn't have a live, so of course, well, we're going to continue the series starting tonight, and then after next week's topic, we're going to veer off a little bit of next week's topic. Next week, Monday, is not going to be about anti-aging, but particularly dental health. So that's the plan. At least we're going to have a dentist tell us about how important it is, how important dental hygiene is for chronic disease and overall health. Okay, and then give us some tips on making sure that we are really taking advantage of all opportunities to make sure our dental hygiene is in check. Okay. So as always, greet us in the chat. Let us know. Oh, Audrey already in here. Greeting. Thank you, Audrey, for showing up. Anyone else who's in the chat want to greet us, and I always like to know who's watching and where you're watching from if you're new, if we haven't met you before. But let's go into the topic. The topic again is anti-aging pathways. We're going to I think the best way to start is a summary of what we talked about last week. So last week we talked about AMPK, an enzyme that is basically the control switch, the master switch for conserving energy. It stimulates, or I should say, activates autophagy, which is what we're going to talk about today. But AMPK is an enzyme that we want to be switched on as much as possible, and because of its health benefits, not just for longevity, but for diabetes and chronic disease, for weight loss benefits, for overall health and wellness. And so let's go into really quick showing you the foods that we highlighted that through studies have shown to be very effective in boosting AMPK. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Just give me a moment here. And also say this: while I'm showing you guys the foods on a poster form or poster, but you can access this through the links in our description section. So go through the links. I'll also share a QR code. But let me just give me a moment to figure out how to share my screen. Oh, here it is, I think. Yeah, here's a poster on last week's live. So this is what we talked about, just as a summary, the foods that we can start adding to our meals or around our meals throughout the day. Barberries, you can definitely get berberine supplements, but I'm always for the food, because food is packaged as God designed it, and it's going to do much better for you than supplements. But barberries, just a tablespoon a day, twice a day. You can get this at Middle Eastern stores or online. Apple cider vinegar or any vinegar-based dressing, but like balsamic vinegar, using that on your dressings is just about 2 tablespoons a day. Studies have shown amps up AMPK. Hibiscus tea, I love hibiscus tea for a lot of reasons, because not only is it good for this purpose, but also for blood pressure, for blood sugar, right? And it has a lot of health benefits. And black cumin is not something we talk about a lot on our channel, so I like that we could present it today as a method to boost or amp up our AMPK. So you could actually get this that download, I should say, download by either visiting our description section, or let me just boast, let's get a little fancy and show a QR code. So this is another way too. If you're watching on your, I guess, computer, most people watching on the phone, I know, but if you want to screenshot this, or if you're looking at it later and you have a phone, a cellular device, you could scan that, and that's going to give you access to the download that gives you those foods. We're going to actually advance. I should also go back to that. Let me go back to that list, because I forgot to mention what I'm going to be doing is keeping different downloads available for you guys on different topics. So this one's on AMPK. these are foods that boost mitochondria. We talked about mitochondria in the past. These are foods that are, nitrate-rich foods included. GLP-1 boosters. What are the foods that studies show boost at GLP-1? What are the foods that are good for diabetes? So if you want access to all these files as a download, as one download, you can have them. And guess what? I don't charge for them. It's absolutely free, a service of love. So just check out the description section if you want that download, or the QR code. It's going to give you access to all of those lists of foods. So yeah, and then let me know how it goes. Of course, all I ask in return is your testimonial. Say, hey, I started using those foods. I started using those specific spices or teas, and these are the results. Thanks, Louis. Right? I just want to know how it worked for you. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and to our topic of the night, which is autophagy. Okay, autophagy definitely is one method or pathway that I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with. If I were to ask you guys, have you heard of autophagy? Is this something that you're familiar with as far as an anti-aging pathway? Let us know in the chat. But it is one that I would say is probably going to be the most common when you're talking about longevity and methods to reverse or slow down aging. Autophagy is always in the conversation. So what is autophagy? Okay, we talked about autophagy in the past, but autophagy, it gives you a hint in its word. Auto meaning self, and phagy meaning eating, self-eating. It's what your cell, it's a process your cell uses to recycle cellular debris. Okay, every moment our cells are creating 10,000 or over 10,000 proteins. Okay, every moment of the day. That's a lot of opportunity for mistakes to happen. Okay, as your DNA is translating these proteins, mishaps occur. So you have misshapen, misfolded proteins happening, building up in the cell, being useless, taking up space, so to speak. You have other things happening like free radical damage that damages your mitochondria and damages your DNA. Of course, all these damages, all this waste builds up over time in your cells. The damage that occurs to your mitochondria is of significant importance, of course, for diabetics, because there are a lot of theories that mitochondrial dysfunction is one of the key components of what causes us to develop diabetes. All right, so it's so important for us to know how we keep our mitochondria healthy, right? So another analogy I give for autophagy is I always like to use the analogy is the Amazon warehouse, because I pick on Amazon warehouses, not all there aren't other warehouses that would fit the bill, but Amazon warehouses are infamous for injury and basically work injuries, work related accidents. So you think of Amazon's policy, of trying to get its products to customers as fast as possible. 2-day shipping. Everyone loves the 2-day shipping, right? There's a reason why you get it so fast, right? Because of the stress that these Amazon warehouses put on their employees and on their drivers, right? So they're overworked. There are often their machinery is broken down. You can look at videos of people talking about how the fact that a lot of the equipment they use breaks down over time or is not up to date. The safety is not their priority in an Amazon warehouse. Their priority is getting you your stuff as fast as possible. Okay, so now imagine what would happen if that Amazon warehouse were to shut down, take a break, right? Give its staff I don't know, half hour, an hour of break, and let people come in and do maintenance on their equipment, do safety checks on their procedures, right? And run through their warehouses and make it more functional and safe, right? This would be good for the employees. This would be good for the company, I would imagine too, as it increases productivity, right? So autophagy is like your body telling your cells that it's break time, right? It's break time. It's now time to look through all that debris and all that waste and to clean up, right? Clean up everything that needs to be cleaned up take the misfolded proteins, that cellular waste, and either recycle it or reuse it, right, or repair it so that it could be better, so it could use, so it could better function and extend the life of the cell. That's why autophagy is a longevity pathway. Okay, now here's the thing: many of us probably have heard, let me correct me if I'm wrong, if you heard that you could activate autophagy if you just fast for 10 to 16 hours. That's usually what people are being told, that you just fast for 12 hours and you've activated autophagy. This is actually unfortunately not true. It's not the case. So autophagy doesn't really go into high gear until you're fasted for 24 to 48 hours. That's when it starts to gear up. That's a long time. I don't know about you, but I like to eat. Okay. I do periodic, 16-hour fast a lot. I sometimes could push it to 18, 20 hours, but you're not really getting into the autophagy stimulation until you're fasting for 24 hours. So how many of you guys are eating one meal a day? Anybody eating one meal a day? I don't know. There are some, there's some people, they call it the OMAD diet, eating, fasting essentially for 24 hours. But yeah, if you like to eat, okay, unfortunately, most of us are not activating this pathway. The reason why this pathway even exists is because throughout most of our time on Earth, our human ancestry existed during periods of feast and famine. Right? There are many times where our ancestors would have food scarcity. Right? We are living in an unnatural environment where food is never scarce, calories abound, right? So our cells never go into the period of time needed to take a break. It's like the cell says, well, we got all this debris, we got all this waste built up inside us, but let's wait till Lewis takes a break from eating. Let's wait for the next time food is scarce, and then we'll use that time to clean up the factory, clean up the warehouse. But the time never comes because Lewis keeps eating. So the cell, it doesn't know what to do because it has plenty of nutrients. And so it lets the waste pile up, and the waste that piles up causes sickness and decreases the lifespan of that cell. So long story short, of course, if you don't want to fast for 24 plus hours to activate this pathway, then I'm going to share with you very briefly some specific foods that can boost autophagy or activate autophagy without you fasting. The first thing, though, I should say, if calorie restriction is helpful, of course, but you need to restrict your calories for a very long time. Exercise is a great hack, because whenever you're exercising, what you're doing is you're dipping into a energy deficit, right? So this is a great way to trigger autophagy. However, studies show that if you want to activate autophagy, it does require a longer period than most of us maybe are spending in the gym. But 60 minutes, according to a test where they would basically biopsy muscle tissue and see if it activated autophagy. It took about 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity, mainly aerobic exercise, at a level of 55 to 70% VO2 max. Okay, so working out rigorously or at a moderate level for at least an hour is a way to boost autophagy. So how many of you guys are out there working out? How many guys are out there hitting the gym? I personally love I love the gym. I could do better with aerobic exercise, though, because I mainly focus on the weights. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of studies that show whether or not resistance training activates autophagy. As of now, if you guys let me know, if you guys know of studies, then let me know, because that would really excite me. But yeah, we could go through an exercise regimen of 60 minutes or longer of aerobic training. It's also important to know foods that actually impair autophagy before we go into foods that activate autophagy. The foods that impair autophagy are animal protein. Okay, so that's why we promote a whole food plant-based diet here at Diabetes 180. But also an interesting thing is fries and potato chips, which shouldn't be surprised, right? But fries and potato chips, this is because when carbs are exposed to high heat, very, very high heat, like frying, they produce a chemical called acrylamide, and acrylamide has been shown to impair autophagy. So avoid chips and fries, obviously, but you also want to limit your intake of animal proteins. What about the foods? This is probably something that's going to be Surprising, shocking for a lot of people, because coffee is usually seen as, oh yeah, you don't want to drink too much coffee. But interestingly enough, there's studies that show coffee and is activator of autophagy. And maybe the reason why studies show that coffee drinkers tend to have these health benefits. So, according to a study of coffee drinkers, I think this study was a compilation of or a meta-analysis of studies. I'm thinking, I think from my memory, it's about 10 million people followed over time to see the benefits. But yeah, 3 cups a day showed lower risk of kidney disease, gout, type 2 diabetes, skin cancer, Parkinson's disease. So a lot of benefits at just 3 cups a day. And what's interesting is that, actually, sorry, this is the study. Sorry, this is a study, 20 study, a compilation of 20 studies following 10 million people showed a 13% lower risk of death from any cause when drinking 3 cups of coffee a day. It should be noted that it didn't have to be decaffeinated. Even decaf coffee had the same health promoting effect. So it's not the caffeine, it's actually the chlorogenic acid. So chlorogenic acid is a polyphenol in coffee. It's the most, I guess, abundant antioxidant in coffee. And when you isolate the chlorogenic acid, you can get the autophagy stimulation, right? So it's actually the chlorogenic acid. You can also look up other foods that have chlorogenic acid. I'm sure they'll have the same effect, but that's why coffee is able to promote autophagy, because of that polyphenol. All right, so this is where we're going to spend most of our time. The rest of our night here is this chemical or compound, spermidine. Spermidine is a compound that was found in 1676 by Antoine van Leeuwenhoek, if I'm saying that right, the father of microscopy. And it's a very interesting origin story. So the father of microscopy thought it was a good idea to examine his semen. Don't ask me why. And so the next, I don't recall if it was sometime after, looking at the samples, he saw crystals in the semen, and of course, being the father of microscopy, examined them, and it turned out that these were spermidine. This compound was spermidine. That's why it's called what it's called. Okay, but interesting enough, this compound is found in many tissues all over our body. Okay, so just unfortunate that it has that strange name, because it was first found in semen. But spermidine is a compound that is mostly found in genetic material, so it actually houses itself to our DNA. And why it does that is because its job is to regulate or make sure that the replication of and translation that the DNA takes part in doesn't make mistakes, essentially. So it stabilizes the work of our DNA. Very important compound, but it also stimulates autophagy. That's why it makes our anti-aging pathway list. Okay. This is actually a very interesting study on rats. So rats fed spermidine live 25% longer and more healthful lives, right? So there have been studies that show benefits on not just rats, but also other species having a longevity effect and a health span increasing effect. What about humans? Because we are not rats, right? We're going to get to that. But what's interesting though is that this naked mole rat is known as a non-aging mammal. I kind of find that funny, because if you look at him, he looks pretty aged to me. But the naked mole rat actually is called a non-aging mammal because it lives 10 to 20 years longer than other mammals of its size. And not only that, but for decades, the naked mole rat can age without showing any signs of deterioration, like decrease in muscle mass or fertility. So, and the reason this is likely is because the naked mole rat, unlike other mammals and other species, they actually can maintain very high levels of spermidine all through their life. So the very interesting thing is most anti-aging pathways show a similarity, in that as we age, those pathways start to decrease in function, right? So if spermidine were a method to stimulate autophagy, you would find that as you get older, spermidine levels go down, right? And this is exactly the case. So by the time you're in your 50s, you have less than 50% of what you had in your youthful days of spermidine. Okay, and this is across species. But the naked monad is a little different in that he, unlike other species, can maintain high levels of spermidine even throughout his older years, and that's why he shows no signs of deterioration, other than I guess the wrinkly skin. I don't know, but he's born with that, so don't blame him. All right. um this is another really interesting thing about the spermidine studies. So there was I think the study was in Italy that showed that centenarians, or people living 90 plus years, had higher or even youthful levels of spermidine in their blood. So when they were examined, compared to people who did not reach that age, their levels of spermidine were very high. Very interesting, right? So those who are living long tend to have possibly the more of this compound in their body. So you might ask yourself, well, why is that? So there's three ways where uh, uh, we create spermidine, or we have a spermidine in our body. Number one is our body makes it, right? Our cells can make it from scratch with amino acid arginine, or our bacteria can make it also from the same amino acid, can actually make spermidine. But the most abundant source would be our food sources. So we could actually have spermidine preformed from foods that we eat. And that enters our body and into our cells and does its work, right? Activating autophagy. So, going back to the study, it's very interesting that maybe these centenarians in Italy had higher levels of exposure in their food supply, right? Maybe it's that simple. Maybe it's not just genetics. This is also very interesting. We're going to go through a couple other studies on wheat germ. So this might give you a little hint on where you could find it, because I'm sure you guys are already asking, well, where do I get this stuff? Let me know, Lewis. Where I want some of that. So wheat germ is actually a method that a lot of clinical researchers use to when they want to test the effects of spermidine. And we're gonna talk about other food sources too. But wheat germ and dementia, wheat germ versus dementia. Those with mild dementia experience cognitive improvements when given wheat germ daily. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a small amount, not a lot. They experienced improvement in cognition way beyond all available anti-dementia treatments so far. That's crazy. I mean, dementia is something that a lot of people, of course, worry about or are living with. Why is it this mainstream news? I don't know, but now you know, right? So of course, this is most likely due to the spermidine effect, right? The longevity effect of autophagy that's stimulated by this compound in our body. This is something else that might be interesting for some of us: wheat germ and hair loss versus hair loss. So, just daily half teaspoon of wheat germ significantly reduced hair shedding. And the way they did this study was quite interesting. So they took a group, of course, the one group had a placebo, the other group had the actual wheat germ, and they did a pull test. They pulled 50 hairs, right? And when you tug 50 hairs, you shouldn't have much come out. But if 5 strands come out, that was considered a positive test when you pull. After I think it was 2 or 3 months of supplementing with wheat germ, the hair pull test was very successful in that group. So compared to the placebo group, there was a lot less hair shedding. And what's even crazier is that months later, they brought them back into the study. All right, after they stopped the wheat germ, they're across the board. Those who had the wheat germ, the group that had the wheat germ, had no hair shedding, right, compared to the group that didn't. So if anyone's looking to have long, luscious hair like these locks, go ahead and get you some wheat germ. All right. So another benefit, well, this is a list of benefits that come from spermidine. Reversing immune aging. So that's something that happens over time. It's why as we get older, many of us succumb to infections, because our immune system ages just like we do. Spermidine can reverse immune system aging. It also can revitalize the heart function, and the vessels that support it, reduce blood pressure, lower rates of heart attack, stroke, and death from vascular disease. So you can see why this is such a powerful way to boost autophagy and help us who want to slow down our aging, right? And so let me make this big so I can read it. So In this here, 800 people were followed between the ages of 40 to 80 years old for 20 years. 146 different nutrients were basically examined, right? And the one nutrient that was most predictive of those who lived long was spermidine. That's interesting, right? So, of the 146 different nutrients that a person can have, spermidine was the most predictive of longevity. And the difference in death rate was as if they were 5.76 younger. Think about that. Just one component of our food can affect you to the point of erasing 6 years. I think I became a fan of this compound once I learned of it. So yeah, and we're gonna talk about, of course, the as they say, the brass tacks. Where can we get this stuff, Lewis? Where are the sources of spermidine? So we already talked about coffee and exercise to stimulate autophagy. These are the foods that can also stimulate autophagy by way of increasing spermidine levels in our body. Okay, and again, you can have this list in the description section. I think I might have a QR code for it too. But these are the foods, okay, listed from top 7, and they're actually listed in serving size. So 9.7 milligrams in 100 milligrams of tempeh. So you can go through this list. If you don't have time to write it out, I'm actually not gonna give you the time because it's pretty long. If you go through, you can you could pause it and write. Of course, you could pause it and write the list out, but if you don't want to do that, just check the description section. Okay. The reason why wheat germ, it's interesting. Wheat germ is pretty low down on the list, but why I encourage wheat germ as a source of spermidine is because it's the cheapest way to get it in your system. Okay, as we're talking like cents, pennies. Okay, so wheat germ, I can't remember how much I bought my case for. It was real cheap, and I bought it like months ago, and still almost full. So you can get a lot of, as far as bang for your buck. Wheat germ is the one I would recommend if you want to activate this autophagy. All right. Don't forget exercise though. All right, that's definitely key. Coffee definitely comes with some concerns, so we should probably do another live on coffee specifically. But yeah, studies do show it can be effective. But if you're looking again for that list, look at the description section. I'm gonna see if I have a QR code for it though. I might. Healthy sources. Yep, I do. So you also can check the scan the code here, and that will get you a downloadable link to get that list of foods that are rich in spermidine. All right. So that's all we have for the night. I don't think I had much questions, which hopefully means that I'm a good teacher. All right. But if you have questions, I will be looking at, obviously my accounts on YouTube and Facebook to answer them. All right. So, beloved, I pray above all things that you may prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. We'll see you next week.